Welcome to the Pro Wrestling Biography series that I said that would be coming, but it's here. Woo!
Woo!
So we're going to start off with the self-proclaimed, in WWE's eyes, 16-time world champion. But if you've seen Ric Flair's interviews, he claims he's 21-time champion. Um, some people say he's 23, some say 25. If any of y'all know in the comment section when you watch this later, let us know for sure, because from my reading it's 21, but I don't know. But I'm here with Nate the Effing Great. We're going to be joined by PK Valor a little bit later. So Nate the Effing Great, I know you kind of were the catalyst of telling me to start with Rick first.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where when we talked about it, it was interesting because originally it was supposed to be talking about like his promo work and such like that. And I just said, well, because of the fact that, this past weekend was his supposed last match until, he's head in a jar and he's wrestling up against who knows at this point, like Dominic Mysterio as the main event of WrestleMania. Um, should definitely be more focused on Ric Flair, his career. Definitely can showcase some of his promo deals, which we were talking about before we went on the air.
Yeah.
Just so many good memories about Ric Flair. I definitely will say that while he's not perfect, he's definitely not in the same boat as like a Vince McMahon is it.
Well, if you go back to the whole plane ride from hell, I mean, any man that could strut around the damn airplane with his robe and being naked, I mean, you have to kind of give him some credit.
Yeah, but I mean, oh geez, that Dark Side of the Ring episode did not paint Ric Flair well. It definitely did not paint Tommy Dreamer well, but it's
No.
one of those things where a lot of people definitely had their eyes open, like, oh wow, this actually kind of happened. And Ric Flair dressed around in nothing but his robe, swinging his helicopter around, doesn't really surprise me though at this point.
I have to ask you, Nate, if you can have any one of his robes, which one would you want to have?
Ooh, I think the best robe that he had was the one from 24. It does have like just this really good uh, color to it. I think it just looked very vibrant, very beautiful.
Oh, the
But
blue.
I will also say that one that kind of stands out there. I remember was his one that he normally had for when he just came out. It always looked like he just picked up a rug and just bejeweled it as a robe. So just seeing those were actually he still looked fashionable doing it. I mean, it's a very fashionable rug robe, if you know what I mean.
I always wanted that black and gray one, the black and white kind of silverish one that he got from the Royal Rumble in '92.
Oh, that one. So that's a good one.
Yeah, I would love to have that robe. I mean, I know that a country singer here called Darius Rucker, from some of y'all that don't know, from Hootie and the Blowfish, is a big Ric Flair fan, and he's got maybe two or three of Ric Flair's robes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
He does not part with them. He's got them in this little glass containers, like Ric Flair's robes, and you're like, almost like you just want to walk up to him, like, can I just use that for a second so I can strut just once? I just want to be able to do that with it.
I mean, so many people throughout the years have literally said that they have just grabbed like their parents' robes and then just literally just strut around the house or strut around the bathroom, just looking at themselves in the mirrors, just literally thinking that they were going to be the next top big thing, which in all honesty, that was who Ric Flair was. He was the big thing that really created wrestling. And honestly, probably even bigger impact in wrestling than some of the big names that we know, like Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper. So many people, when they think about Ric Flair, they think about him in his robes, and he's wearing the Rolexes, he's driving the planes, he's in the limos, he's got all the beautiful women around him. Just literally an embodiment of what wrestling. I think when wrestling could be really fun and definitely be like major character work. He was the Hugh Hefner of wrestling.
Oh yeah. And what's interesting too is you mentioned Vince earlier, but I think one of the documentaries, one of these DVDs I saw of Vince, Triple H said that he had a conversation with Vince, And when Vince wanted to be a wrestler and his dad wouldn't let him, he had the vision of being like Ric Flair.
Honestly, with Vince doing all the impressions that he's done, where he mocks, Hulk Hogan, where he mocks Triple H, he mocks Shawn Michaels, seeing him mock Ric Flair, and I think I do remember him actually wearing the robe and he had the blonde wig on. It was one that definitely stands out because A, you never think that you would see Vince McMahon in blonde hair, and B, it just it just made you think of Vince again as a cocky, arrogant son of a bitch.
But I found some things about Ric Flair, though. We've kind of dive into this a little bit. Part of his bio actually says that his name is Richard Morgan Flair, but it's spelled differently than what we see in wrestling. Ric Flair was born February 25th. He's a February baby like me. 1949, and he was born in Memphis, Tennessee, actually.
Huh.
And he is he has been called self-proclaimed the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Flair has had a career span of over 50 years. You ever heard of anybody actually having 50 years?
Honestly, not really. I mean, for somebody as active as Ric Flair has been, you seldom hear people, talk about that. You talk about, people that have been a part of wrestling, as either a manager or as a big name deal, but never really like a full-on wrestler or a huge, I guess, personality like the base of Ric Flair. No.
Well, I mean, some people would say he stole that Nature Boy from,
Buddy Rogers.
Rogers.
I mean, ask Scott Steiner. He practically said it in a promo.
Then again, though, do you really want to ask? Can you really trust Scott Steiner,
though? It depends on the kind of trusting that we're talking about. I mean, in the ring, maybe. Outside the ring, depends. So it's kind of wavy heading towards no. So to be fair.
So it says here that Ric Flair is officially recognized by WWE as a 16-time world champion, but he's an 8-time NWA heavyweight champion and a 6-time WCW world champion and a 2-time WWF champion. Although the number of his world championship reigns varies by sources, claims to be either 16 to 25, but Ric Flair himself has said 21. So he is a 21-time world champion.
Still less than the Dudley Boys because they're 24 reigns as tag team champion. They might have made it to 25, but I'm not sure.
You can't really, well, yeah, you can't beat the Dudleys on that one. They've been tag team champions throughout the whole entire world. So
they sure have, but I mean, still 21 is very impressive.
But as my dad would say back then when he would watch wrestling, I was watching wrestling growing up with him. I'm like, wow, that's impressive. He's won like 5 times or something like that. He'll go, my dad will look at me and go, but he's lost 5 times. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that.
Well, to be fair, a couple reigns that Ric Flair had, he didn't really lose. He was just stripped of the title because he didn't like the booking that they were putting him through the old Jim Crockett WCW promotions. Like if you remember, they actually wanted him to cut his hair and wear armor, and he was going to be known as like Spartacus for a time. But Ric Flair's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
You know that Ric Flair was a successful amateur wrestler in his teens, and he was trained by professional wrestler Vern Gagne. Attended Gagne's academy with Jumpin' Jim Barnzell, the Iron Sheik, and Ken Petzer, or how you pronounce his name there? I can't really pronounce the last name, but he was at a damn wrestling school with the Iron Sheik. Can we just imagine what that would be like with Flair and Sheik in the same school?
I imagine that, I can't imagine that because with everything that Sheik has said on Twitter and just how Ric Flair's attitude can be like, it wouldn't really surprise me if the two of them went to the same school and basically spoke the same language. Ric Flair just starts cussing shit like that, and Iron Sheik just literally just drops an F-bomb every other week.
Oh, the other guy was Ken Patera. That's what it was.
Oh, Patera, okay.
Yeah. Now, yeah, with Iron Sheik, when he goes freaking crazy and he starts going like, Hogan, this, he always has something to say about Hogan. It's like his fallback. I mean, yeah, it would be interesting to see those two. But, during his thing, Ric Flair's first ever debut was on December the 10th, 1972. He made his debut in a little Wisconsin town called Rice Lake, Wisconsin.
Really?
So, Flair, that's to be cool, though. He had his first debut in Wisconsin.
Flair country started in Wisconsin. That's something we can be proud of.
He was also born in Memphis, Tennessee, so it's also started here.
This whole entire thing comes full circle. Now, all we need is somehow a tie-in with Illinois, and everything will be great.
Well, Courtney Peterson, if you're watching later, if Ric Flair, if Flair went to Colorado, he'd probably try to get you to be one of his girls. So.
I kind of imagine that Courtney would be more like like Daphne of WWE. God rest her soul. She definitely would have the crazy vibes about her, and I think that she would literally make Ric Flair just be like, "Oh, you're crazy. I like it. Woo!"
Or she could probably be a lot like Sensational Sherry.
Oh, I could see that too.
I mean, I could see Flair digging that craziness, though. I mean, I do. I see it. But what was cool though is that wrestling convention that was here, they had the former Jim Crockett like background where they used to do their promos. They had that background there. And I thought that was a pretty cool little nod to Jim Crockett, actually. Did you watch any of those wrestling things back in the 70 early 80s, Nate?
I know that Jay and Josh have definitely been introducing me to a lot of the classic feels. Definitely more of the classic, like WWF days, Jim Crockett promotions. I kind of watch those every now and then, especially if they're in like a documentary or if they're like a bonus on the DVDs. They would kind of showcase those matches on there. But yeah, no, kind of hearing that they try to go back and showcase what the glory days were back then. I really kind of miss a lot of those because some of the backstage deals just all look the same. Whereas, something like the Jim Crockett promotions, yes, it looks the same, but there's some kind of charm to it that you feel like they're actually trying to give you something special there.
But we got her back up to 1974. Actually, 1975.
Ooh.
He actually, at the age of 25, broke his back at 3 different places. However, Flair's career nearly ended in his life when a serious plane crash in Wilmington, North Carolina, took the life of the pilot that was driving. It paralyzed Johnny Valentine. Was also aboard a plane. Where was Mr. Wrestling, Bob Burgers, and promoter David Crockett. So he was told people he would never wrestle again. But Flair took took some physical therapy schedule, and he was able to maintain that. So I mean, that's got to be a scary thing, though. You get a plane crash, you survive, your back's broken in 3 different places, you're told you'll never wrestle again. But that man was too stubborn to die.
No kidding. And we have heard, how people have definitely had back issues that would definitely either prevent them from going a few more years in wrestling, i.e. Paul Hogan, or sometimes there's the back issues that really do, end careers. So I think that with Ric Flair being at a young age, he was able to recover a bit faster. And I think that everything was able to get back in place. So yeah, no, it was really cool to hear that he did not have his career ended right then and there.
And that's the unfortunate part because some celebrities that have been plane crashes, like for some of y'all that don't know, the Southern rock band Leonard Skinner, when they had their plane crash, everybody that was on board died. So not everybody's lucky. Flair was lucky. Maybe that's the reason why Flair does party and drink so much, because he's like, look, I died almost once. He almost died again later on in life. He's pretty much going around like, look, he even told the news reporter here, he still drinks to this very day.
Probably to take away some of the pain that he's been dealing with. And alcohol is a strong vice that can be very hard to, overcome. But at the same time, I understand where he's coming from. You only live once. You only got one life to live. Make it the best.
So in the late 1985, the tag team of Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson began aiding Flair, and they claim they claim Flair to be a cousin, in attacks against Dusty Rhodes, Magnum TA, and Sam Houston. Shortly thereafter, Flair, Blanchard, and the Andersons formed their alliance, calling themselves the Four Horsemen.
Hells yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, Nate. Like, when you think of stables in wrestling, where does the Horsemen rank?
I think the Horsemen rank up definitely within the top 5, if not the top 3 greatest stables of all time, because of the fact that it is 4 different personalities, but they mesh together all so well. And having Ric Flair at the head of the helm definitely really skyrocketed that stable into that huge, superstardom deal. Now, some people could definitely debate that, factions like the Shield, the NWO, Evolution, a lot of these bigger stables that have, definitely established more, they have made an impact, but they have not made a lasting impact like the Four Horsemen did. Like a lot of people, when they think of stables, normally the first thing that comes to mind is Four Horsemen.
Now, they had the Four Horsemen at the convention. They had J.J. Dillon was there, Tony Blanchard was there, Anderson was there, Flair was there. They had Barry Windham and Lex Luger. Now, I don't know where any the other people were at, but it's pretty sad to see Lex Luger still in the wheelchair. But unfortunately, it was cool to see the Horsemen. Now, if you think about that, Nate, when he broke his back in 3 different places, for the last 50 years, he kept going. I mean, if you see when Flair took some of those bumps, like when Hogan would grab him or Sting would grab him off the top, throw him out there, you always see the Flair landed a certain way.
That is true. He did.
He didn't land like the regular back bump that we all are accustomed to doing. Mm-hmm. He kind of landed on his side a little bit. So Flair was always able to protect himself from really any serious injury. I don't even see many serious injuries that he's had.
It's really crazy because Ric Flair, that just shows how great of a mind Ric Flair has for the business, because he was able to adapt to make sure that he could not have that issue of landing. I'm sure like the first time he probably did that, he was like, okay, that hurts. Let's not do that again. So you're right. He probably had to find a way to adapt so that way he can land more towards the side of his back instead of the full front on his back. But I just remember thinking, you mentioning that, him doing the whole deal where he's just going to the top rope and every time gets thrown off by Sting, Hogan, Paul, Nash. You just named every single person on the face of the earth. They've done it to him at least once. So it's one of those things where, again, shows Ric Flair is so adaptable and so cunning when it comes to being wise about the spots. And yeah, you're right. There was not too many big time injuries that game. He probably suffered, I want to say, a concussion one point. I could be wrong, but I've not really heard anything about him, tearing like a ligament or a muscle in his body. So he kind of works like how the Miz works now. He definitely finds a way to, create a moveset that's nothing too flashy, too big, but something that is still always going to be impactful and also safe, which is why he probably didn't suffer too many injuries.
When you see a guy like MJF, And you sit there thinking, man, you're in the wrong era, bro. I mean, he's great and everything, but when you see MJF, I see a young Ric Flair. Like,
I can see those comparisons.
You know, he's got the nice suit on. He's got his nice little scarf on, and telling everybody to sit down, shut up, fat boy, shut up, girl, and just it's the way he insults people. He's kind of like the Ric Flair he's kind of like a Ric Flair 2.0, except he's a little bit more, I would say a little bit more, he can move a little bit quicker than Flair did.
I think on his mics, because he's definitely a lot more colorful too.
Right.
Which, some people may get pissed about that, but at the same time, he's found a way to make it work, and it's not just one of those things where he's just going to randomly throw down an S-bomb or an F-bomb. He's very wise to only use that when the time is right.
Now, I know that you are a big fan of the big gold belt that he had.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people are. But I, myself, am a big fan of the NWA Championship. I love the way that belt looks. I mean, the old school NWA belt, which is still in NWA promotion today. I don't know why, but when I see that belt, I love it. It looks gorgeous to me. But the big gold belt is definitely one which he did wear to the ring in his last match.
I think maybe it's just the designs that really appeal to people, and I will not deny seeing the NWA World Heavyweight title is something that's appealing to me too, because I actually got introduced to that title design through NWA TNA, which I'm doing so many of those reviews for. So I'm seeing that more now, and I still have a deeper appreciation for it, because even though it doesn't look like a belt that I've been traditionally accustomed to, like the WWE version of it, the NWA belt still had a great design, and still kind of one of those things where it's like, I would fight for that. I think that little globe that was on the very top of it definitely makes it more desirable too.
Well, I know that you collect a lot of replica belts.
Two of them I actually have, which are the World Heavyweight and the NWA belt.
The NWA belt is something that I've always kind of been eyeballing, and I've seen it online. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, that is just a beautiful
Big Kev want belt.
He's got that belt. Get him.
Hey, that's a nice NWA belt. Can I see it? Mel, run!
No, I wouldn't do that to you. I just would take the belt like, hey, nice belt. Then to just do the whole cock. But we've seen Ric Flair. One of my fondest memories of Ric Flair was they wrestled a couple times in Nashville. The feud between him and Terry Funk is very legendary. We saw one where it was a fight, and I remember Ric Flair being power drived on the concrete, and just how him and Terry Funk were just going at each other, and it was intense. And I remember my dad taking me to that, and I kept asking him, "Is Rick okay? Is Rick okay?" My dad's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's fine. He's probably having a beer afterwards." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. He concrete on the floor."
Yeah, Ric Flair and Terry Funk definitely are probably the two most well-known, I guess you could say, older generation wrestlers who definitely have that deep passion and definitely a deep appreciation for wrestling in and of itself. I remember watching the ECW, the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD, where so many people were just like, oh, I need my spot. I got to beat this person. I got to beat this person up. And Terry Funk was like, I can make this guy. I can make this guy. Oh, hey, let me do something really special with him. I can do something special with him. And just seeing Terry Funk literally being like, let me do some magic with this guy. And I think Ric Flair, to a pretty good degree, definitely did the same thing, where if he had a young talent that he saw potential and he was like, let me work with this kid, let me make him a big star. And obviously one of the big feuds that, we'll mention later on is going to be his feud with Sting, because honestly, the two of them had some amazing matches. going forward. But one of the feuds that actually we in wrestling was talking about was the feud with Flair and Rhodes, which honestly I got the chance to watch a few of those matches earlier this year. I was just like the storytelling, the chemistry between the two of them. It's just wow. It really shows that you can have a really great story and have really great characters there. Did they need to use like Canadian destroyers and stuff like that? No, they just literally were like, I want to fight you for the title. Well, I want to keep this belt. And they put on one hell of a matchup and one hell of a series of matchups because Dusty Rhodes is amazing, baby. And Ric Flair is going to make sure that he gives you a run for your money. Woo!
Now, I'm glad you said that about Sting because it segue to Sting because a young Sting comes around in early 1988. A young Sting fought Ric Flair to a 45-minute time limit draw in the very first ever Clash of Champions. And if no one's ever seen that match, you need to go up and look at that one. Because, Sting, his background, he was a blonde, beach, big guy. He just came out of the tag team stuff with the Warrior for Christ's sakes. So when Sting comes on, he's this green, big kid, but he has such a big athletic ability. But him and Flair's chemistry just worked. And I think Flair helped him mold Sting to who he is. But I don't know if you remember, Nate, but there was one time where they were having a cage or something. Sting comes out, and Sting talked about it. He come out, he was going to climb up the cage, but Rick was supposed to catch him. But Sting went up there and ended up blowing his ACL or something.
Really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And he's like, man. And then Flair caught him at the. Then Flair finally started hitting on him. He's like, Rick, my knee.
Oh my gosh, I could see Sting really doing that. I don't think I've seen that particular moment, but I think I have heard stories about people like that. It always seems like people really just have major problems with cages, and almost to the point where their legs just get broke out.
Yo.
Oh my goodness, is that who I think it is?
Yes, it is.
It is. Coming to you live from his damn car.
Coming live from the car is PK Valor.
It's almost like Luger's house on the left there.
Apologies for being a little on the late side there, ladies and gentlemen. We had a little family matter at Valor Valley here.
So a guy that I know very well, Nate, We Do Wrestling, Andre Cobill, he said that he was on a phone call once with AJ Styles, and AJ told him that the NWA title was the least favorite that he held because he thought the design was super ugly.
It's one of those things where, like I said, everybody has their own opinions on the belts. Everybody has their own opinions on the designs. NWA title is not one of my favorites. I think the big gold belt, the world heavyweight, is still one of my favorites, just because it's just.
That was NWA at one time.
That is fair. That is true. But it's because it's just kind of like, I think I'm just a simpleton because it's just a simple design. It's just big gold belt. Do you want it? Hell yeah, I do.
Yeah, I was going to ask. We were talking about it earlier, PK, but I'm going to ask you, if you can have any of Ric Flair's robes, which one would you have?
WrestleMania. Him and Shawn. I love the blue, and just the fact that it's got so much pageantry to go with it, and it was the last official one that he wore for WWE as a performer. So I would try to get him to sign it, Hunter and Shawn. Maybe not Hunter, maybe him and Shawn just because of the match itself.
I was about to say, you're heading towards like an end of an era deal, so you might as well just have Taker sign it as well as Triple H.
No, that would be if I could get my hands on Taker's fucking hat.
Oh, that's fair. That is fair.
Man. And there's also too, and that's when Flair started having problems. When NWA he decides to take the big gold belt, it goes to the World Wrestling Federation. And one of the very first times he brought that belt, I remember it well because Hogan was feuding with the Undertaker, and Hogan was on the Paul Bearer show.
That's right.
And here comes Flair on robes, shows the big gold belt, and Hogan's like, well, you know what? Let's put that belt on the line against the real world champion. And then just like, it was like seeing that big gold belt, everybody's like, well, how could Flair show it? I was like, Flair owned it. He didn't lose it.
Flair made that belt. Without Flair, the NWA title and the consequently WCW title didn't really mean a damn thing.
I mean, honestly, he has a good point. I actually do want to mention a question that your boy over at Weed and Wrestling was mentioning. If the Rise and Fall of ECW documentary is kind of like a non. So the Rise and Fall of ECW was actually was a part of the DVD era. I know this is dating ourselves so much because now we got Blu-rays and digital copies and shit like that. But yeah, no.
We still make DVDs. We ain't that damn old. Stop it.
I'm sorry, but I was talking about VHS.
You're the youngest one out of the three of us. Don't make us feel even worse. He's nursing a freaking calf muscle injury. I'm nursing multiple back injuries, including a broken vertebrae. Don't fucking make me feel older.
Fair enough. But
all I gotta do is roll out of bed. That just reminds me.
Oh my god! Now you're starting to make it feel like you're the Kevin Nash of this group, where you just wake out of bed, always in pain, always in pain.
I mean, given the fact that I've screwed up my leg because of a lawnmower, yeah, I guess I can be the Kevin Nash. I just don't scare the quad.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, the Rise and Fall of ECW was a DVD that they had a long time ago. But I do agree that a lot of the documentaries that have been coming out as of late have definitely been skewing the and rewriting some of the history that they've been A&E's been doing a bad issue with that. But yeah, no, honestly, to find the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD, find that, which is probably online somewhere, probably dirt cheap. I guarantee that it's around there somewhere. Definitely would recommend it. But going back to what we were talking about earlier with Ric Flair coming on to the, I think it was Paul Bearer's funeral parlor. I know exactly the talk show segment you were talking about. And I actually think I do remember the promo that you were talking about because this was on, ironically enough, another DVD that was about The Undertaker, where literally Flair comes out with the NWA World title. He's just dressing down Hogan, saying like, I'm the real, true world's heavyweight champion. You have a fake belt. And I love how he has a line where he's like, in closing, what are you going to do when Ric Flair goes wild on you? And then Hogan just acts like he's tearing apart his shirts, looking like he's just going through like a birthday present. And then Taker beats up Hogan. And then we see Flair just holding both belts like, yeah, I'm the tag team champions. Wait, wrong era. I'm the both world champion.
And then it took Macho Man and Piper with chairs to take Undertaker off of him.
Well, everybody fears Macho Man. He was a bit crazy during the time. And Piper's in a class of his own, so let's be fair.
When you guys go back to the Royal Rumble 1992, which I still think is the best Royal Rumble one of the best Royal Rumbles of all time. I guess PK couldn't deal with Ric Flair's hotness, had to leave.
He'll probably be back.
Ahoy probably injured his quad, and he'll be back.
Man, we're doing Kevin Nash jokes on this show now. Okay, isn't the click the same noise that Kevin Nash makes when he walks around the house? Click, click, click.
Even Kevin Nash was making jokes on his podcast in Nashville Live. He said he was sitting down in a chair, and all of a sudden, and Nash like, "You guys hear that? That was a pop."
Big Nash. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Nash is a cool guy. But you were talking about the 92 Rumble.
That Rumble, if you go back and you watch the Rumble, folks, and it's free on YouTube now on WWE. You can look it up and it's actually free to watch. Bobby Heenan was so perfect with the whole thing because they had the story that Heenan was the one orchestrating bringing Ric Flair to WWF. And Heenan was like, anytime Flair would get in the ring, he'd go, no, 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 no. No, there was one time Undertaker starts choking him and rolling back his eye, and he's like, oh no, stop, no. And then it was like, Flair came in at number 3 in that Rumble, and he had a young Shawn Michaels after him. He had a Kerry Von Erich, Texas Tornado after him at that point. He was in there with Davey Boy Smith. He was in there with quite a few future Hall of Famers in that Rumble. There were so many Hall of Famers in that Rumble, but not. I guess I could spoil it because I'm sure people have already seen the Rumble. If you haven't, I don't know what to tell you. But it comes down to Sid, Hogan, and Flair. And Flair's over there chopping Hogan. Hogan's like, come back to that for a second. Sting and Hogan are the best people to sell a damn chop by Flair. I don't know. Sting was just like, and then Hogan would just start popping it up. And it was just the way Flair did it. But obviously, Sid eliminates Hogan. Hogan gets mad, grabs Sid's arm. Flair dumps him over. And Heenan's over there going, yes, 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 he did it. Very first ever WWE champion is Nature Boy Ric Flair. And I remember when he was back there, it was him, Mr. Perfect, Bobby Heenan, and Gene Okerlund. And he goes, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. And you all will all be paying homage to the man. Woo!
One of the greatest promos ever delivered from after a championship win. Honestly, you can definitely say that was probably one of the best WWE title wins ever, in all honesty. I actually kind of looked at the list of so many of the people that you were mentioning. Many Hall of Famers, and also there's a few of them that I look at and like, oh man, they're no longer with us. That makes me really, really sad. Having Flair go over and having a record for one of the longest Rumble runs, I think, for years, I want to say. I think he held on to that until Rey Mysterio broke it, because I think he held on to it for about, if I remember correctly, it was an hour and 2 seconds. Jeez Louise. I mean, Ric Flair had to have a lot of cardio to really be in there for that long.
It's that Space Mountain. That Space Mountain cardio.
You are correct.
But I like, now the reason why a lot of people are still upset because they didn't do WrestleMania 8 with Hogan versus Flair, but from what I've heard from Ric Flair and what I've heard from Hogan, both have the same story. Believe it or not, Hogan's got the same story as somebody. I know. Hogan said that it was supposed to be him and Flair, but because they did a couple of house shows that didn't do very well, Vince decided to have Hogan versus Sid and Macho Man versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. Now, going into WrestleMania 8, Flair started messing with Miss Elizabeth. Started saying that Elizabeth was doing stuff with him, and you know how Macho Man is. The most intense, probably one of the most intense wrestlers I ever seen in my life. And if Macho Man was still alive, I don't even know if I would try to fight him. I mean, that's just how crazy Macho Man was.
No, I've definitely heard a lot of crazy stories about Macho Man. I think that, and this will be definitely for like another show that we do where we talk about him. But I still think one of my favorite stories is him and Jake Roberts, where we're talking about the King Cobra, and Jake the Snake is literally just like, are you kidding? Yes, it's a cobra, but it has been devenomized, you idiot. And Macho's trying to convince him to bite Jake Roberts. Like, no, I'm not going to let him bite me. Are you kidding me? And Macho Man's just all paranoid. Like, we'll let him bite you because he's been devenomized. Like, you're crazy, dude. But, yeah, no, I agree with you. Going into WrestleMania 8, I wouldn't have cared if they would have done, Hogan and Flair for the 7th time, it would still happen at WrestleMania. I think it would still draw on immense numbers. And it also depends on where they did the house shows. If it was like a smaller city, obviously it's probably going to draw smaller crowds. But if you have it in bigger season, it's a smaller draw. That's to be understandable. But yeah, I mean, going from something that was a dream match to then going into 2 different matches where one was good and one was one of the worst WrestleMania main events ever because somebody forgot their cue and somebody had to kick out of the Hogan leg drop. Just, yeah, the less we talk about that main event, the better. So I think it would have been better if they would have just had Hogan and Flair, but hindsight being 2020, I don't know if it would have been the best business decision. We don't know.
Papa Shango was a little bit late in that main event.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna try and throw him under the bus, but
nah, I mean, yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he just missed his cue, but Flair later on that year wins the belt back from Macho Man, but then he loses the championship to a very first ever Bret the Hitman Hart title run.
Now, that was really cool. That is a showcase of Ric Flair wanting to build up younger talent so that they can be a part of the next generation. He does a great job of that. I don't know if you heard this story, but did you know that Bret Hart, geez Louise. Don't Canadian fans come after me. Bret Hart, he actually dislocated his finger during that matchup. Did you hear that?
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember watching the another Best of Bret Hart series DVD where he dislocates his finger. He pops it back in, but Kurt Hennig, he actually saw it, and the camera was able to just catch his reaction where he was just like, ugh. Which understandably so. But no, he did a great job. I think that Ric Flair was doing that even with no, that would be Kurt. I'm thinking about Kurt Hennig, but yeah, no, Ric Flair puts over a young Bret Hart. What more can you really say about that?
One of Flair's last matches in WWF during that time is when Mr. Perfect comes out of retirement and he teams with Macho Man against him and Scott Hall in Survivor Series. But it was January 25th, the Monday Night Raw, in a match taped 6 days earlier. Flair had a verbal agreement with Vince at the condition that if he wasn't going to be used in the main event position, he had an offer to go elsewhere, that he would be released from his contract. He opted to leave the WWF, and that's when they had him lose to Mr. Perfect in the You Losers Out.
I actually remember that matchup. Yeah. I actually forgot. I think that was even like the first Raw that they taped. I think that's what you were saying. Yeah. No, that's really crazy to have your first debut episode have that kind of huge matchup with that huge implication. And for it to not be the main events, that's questionable. But at the same time, it's early Raw. So I guess we need to have Shawn Michaels versus, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was. It was the it was the guy in the full body blue suit with the streamers. I can't remember what his name was, like Moon Rave or something like that.
Max Moon.
Max Moon, thank you. I was like, the name is on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember exactly because I remember somebody actually seemingly brought that character back in like a earlier like squash match, I think with either Strowman or something like that. It's like, holy shit, looks like Max Moon. He's back.
So when Flair triumphantly returns to WCW in February of 1993, he rebranded the WCW International. At the time, it was now the rebranded WCW International World Heavyweight Championship to Rick Rude. But at Starrcade 93, Ric Flair defeated Big Van Vader to win it back. And during that time, he was also feuding with Ricky Steamboat.
Oh, my gosh. Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, that's just a beautiful sight. And it's just melodic music to my ears to hear that actually happened.
And the fact that Monday Night Raw had Ciampa versus AJ Styles, I mean, I was excited about that too. So,
yeah, no, that was the perfect night. But that's for conversation for a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember watching a couple Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair matches, and I think that if anything could combat Steamboat and Savage, those two would have a really good name claim for that title.
I tell anybody, if you really want to watch how to really tell a story in the ring, you can watch a lot of Ric Flair matches, especially with Ricky Steamboat, and especially with Dusty Rhodes, and especially with, it's Ric Flair was a great storyteller, and like you said earlier, he didn't have to do very much. Couple chops, a little bit of a suplex there. And Flair, though, even though he wasn't considered a bodybuilder, he had a pretty good physique for. I don't know if you would call Flair a smaller guy. He was 6'1", but Flair was more on the athletic ability. He can be athletic if he needs to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're not going to see him break out like a 450 splash or something like that, but when he goes to the top rope, he makes the most of it. Usually it's for like a double axe handle, or I think hasn't he brought out a crossbody in some of his matches?
I think he did used to, yeah. I think so.
I could see that, honestly. Yeah, no, he makes those high spots count. When it comes down to it and he feels like there's nothing else to do, that's where he's like, okay, I'm going to try this.
If you know Flair's going up to the top, you know someone's about to throw him off the top.
This is also true.
Yeah. And when he whips you in the turnbuckle, I've always just want to do that. I want to go to Rick and say, hey, can I whip you in the turnbuckle? Because I want to see him do that flip.
Oh, my God. Yes. he and Shawn just were masters at that.
Now, here's some funny stuff with Flair, but what did you used to think when he would like get hit and he would walk around the ring and then fall?
I think first watching, I was just kind of like confused as to why that is. But as time went on, I definitely really enjoyed those moments just because Ric Flair, oh my gosh, every single time he would just do the deal. Like he'll be in a corner just getting punched at like so many times. And then he comes back, does some like fake punches towards his opponent, and then face flops. I was just like on the ground laughing. Or there's a situation where he just gets stunned and he's going to make a tag to his partner, but just misses the hand. I enjoyed it. It was one of those things where it was just like, that's Ric Flair being entertaining. That's Ric Flair being Ric Flair. I would not change anything about that because he always made it awesome.
So when Flair comes back, he was the catapult. He was a catapult who actually got Hulk Hogan to sign with WCW in '94. At the time, they were filming over there in at the Disney Studios. Hogan was filming Thunder in Paradise. Flair kept telling Bischoff, "Hey, he's over here. Let's talk. Let's get him over here." So then we finally get that one big match, Bash at the Beach '94, Hogan and Flair in Orlando. Which, both at that time were, Flair wasn't really, some people could say Flair was past his prime, but I can tell you Hogan was at that point.
Yeah.
Flair, on the other hand, he held the match together. And then that's what started the whole Four Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom trying to take out Hogan and Macho Man. And it was just actually, if you go back to one of the Nitros, Nate, not many people know this, but one of the girls that came out with, it was Miss Elizabeth, a woman, and there was a blonde hair woman once that came out on a Nitro. That blonde hair woman was Linda, Hogan's first wife.
Really?
Yes. I have to find a clip, but there was one point where she comes out as one of Ric Flair's girls, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, I wonder how that tastes for Hogan.
Sloppy seconds. Sloppy seconds.
Well, if you saw that shoot promo the Warrior had on Hogan, Hogan did pass around Linda, according to him. I don't know.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know.
Hogan.
And we're not going to. And some of y'all were asking about the Flair thing. I'm not going to talk about all of his divorces, okay?
No. No.
I can't do it.
I mean, geez, Louise. Yeah, no. That's a mess in and of itself. But no, it's really crazy is that you mentioned how Ric Flair still was able to carry a match despite Hogan being a little bit past the point of being at his prime.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Flair somehow still kept the same kind of level of integrity when it came to a lot of his matches, to where it wasn't like flatline. There were some that were kind of good, but then there were some that were just kind of like the same kind of feel. But it never really felt like they went down until after WrestleMania 24, which, geez Louise, oh boy. But yeah, no, there were some matches where he knew that being in a pay-per-view, it definitely had to be on his A game. So every time he was on pay-per-view, he definitely brought his A game. And it doesn't surprise me at all to hear that Ric Flair was probably the one reason why that match worked. Had we had Hogan and Flair years ago, we could have had probably a different outcome. We probably would have had a better match. But obviously that wasn't the case because, reasons. Is he back again?
Yes, I am back. I'm just
hey.
I'm eating, so I don't want everybody on YouTube land to see that one.
So he didn't pull a Kevin Nash earlier. That's good.
we were just saying that when you cut out that we thought that maybe you like tore your quad or something like that.
Nah, just the bicep.
Oh, even better.
Well, think about it this way, though. I got no feeling in this finger at all from football and wrestling.
Nice.
Football, wrestling.
Yeah. Well, when I had a 300 semi-pound defender step on my hand with
a cleat.
Yeah. Mel likes to be like, hey, that's the dead finger. Let's just play with it and knock it off and hit it. And I'm like, woo.
The dead finger.
But Flair, I don't know do you remember that one though, where he actually was feuding with Arn Anderson? There was a point where he was feuding with Arn Anderson. He was teaming with Sting. He came to be Sting's partner. He comes into the ring, looks like he's about to hit Anderson, and then pop Sting right in the face.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was like, wow. Sting got turned on by him quite a bit. I remember one time they tried to ask Sting to be a part of Horsemen, and they turned on him.
Poor Steve. Guy's really nice, and he's just literally getting his ass kicked by the Four Horsemen.
But in April of 1998, Flair disappears from WCW television due to a lawsuit by Eric Bischoff for no showing on a live episode of Thunder. But when Flair comes back and has that promo in the ring, and you know the one I'm talking about, Mean Gene, where he strips freaking naked, just about naked, wants to have that match with Eric Bischoff. He was over there throwing his Gucci's in the air. He was like throwing his Crocs. I remember him doing this little thing to a woman, like, woo. And then I still have it on VHS where he basically said, if you don't come out, Eric, when we come back from commercial, I'll be naked. But Eric Bischoff comes out there.
I didn't want to be reminded of.
But Eric Bischoff comes out. They have that match. That was the match where Macho Man comes out with Gorgeous George and has the NWO shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And ends up hitting the Big Show, Giant. Low blows him, clotheslines him over the top. He leaves. And then we get Ric Flair in charge for 90 days.
Wow.
What'd you think about Flair being in charge, Nate?
Honestly, I can't really say that I remember that too fondly because when you were saying that he returned, I thought that you were talking about the return when he was where he had like the quote unquote new Horseman with
yeah he did, yeah.
Okay, because that I remember that I remember Flair coming out cutting a very passionate promo to the point where it definitely brought tears to your eyes, and then Eric Bischoff is just trying to just be like, like cut it. And then Ric Flair has that classic line of just like, you are a liar. You're a cheat. You're a scam. You are a no good son of a bitch. I remember that promo. And he just said, fire me. I'm already fired. Fire me. I'm already fired. Fire me. That one I do remember. And I do also remember the promo you're talking about where he's just stripping down his skeevy jeebies. Just be like, come back for commercial. I'll be naked. Woo!
I never understood. Do you guys maybe you guys have understood this, but y'all ever understood why Flair runs and does like a knee drop and an elbow to the ring?
So many times.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous to watch.
I mean, it's just
especially when he elbow drops his sports jackets.
There has to come a point where Ric Flair realizes that this stuff that he's doing, yes, it's ridiculous, but it's somehow still getting a reaction from the crowd. And that's probably one of the reasons why he does it.
I was going to say, that's why he did it, and that's why he probably still does it. Apparently, one of the reports that I heard over the weekend, he faked a heart attack.
Yes, he did. We were talking about that. Yep. He faked a heart attack.
I know I'm a little late to the party, but
well, no, I mean he faked a heart attack in the match, and Jay Lethal was about to hit him. He fakes a heart attack, and Lethal goes, "Are you okay?" And Flair goes,
he does his eye pokes like Piper used to do.
And I mean, some of the feuds though that Flair had when he came back to WCW. I remember the first one. I remember when Hogan turned NWO and then beat the Giant for the belt. They had that Clash of the Champions, where Hogan lost by disqualification. I mean, Flair won by disqualification, but in that match though, I don't think Hogan fully knew how to be a heel right off the bat because he was still hoking up to Flair.
Yeah, because Hogan hadn't been a heel in so long.
Yeah,
he forgot what the hell he was supposed to do to be a heel.
Then we had the Flair and Bret Hart feud in '98. He was talking about who the better wrestler is, and those two have a long history with not liking each other.
No, they get along. They got along. Bret never had a problem with it. It was always a professional rivalry.
Yeah.
Like the start of what everything was with Shawn and Bret. Then with Shawn and Bret, it turned personal. With Bret and Flair, it never did that. It just stayed professional.
So we go into the early '99 when Flair is in charge. We go into the finger poke of doom.
Oh my God!
Flair. Nash over there asks, "Can he have that match with Goldberg?" Flair agrees. Then Goldberg gets arrested for the whole Elizabeth thing. Hogan shows up, and then they started the whole feud between Flair and Hogan, which NWO Elite Hogan, that was a mixture of Hogan and Hollywood Hogan, because Hogan would, anytime Flair would do that chop, Hogan would go. But then they brought in David Flair involved. And I remember, I don't know if y'all remember that, but Flair was getting beat up when they were all wearing all black and they had him surrounded outside. They were beating the hell out of Flair and stuff like that. And then they looked like they were beating up on David. And David, the worst thing they ever did was put David Flair into the NWO Wolfpack. But he got to be with Tori Wilson, though. So that was and then they put him with Daphne. So it kind of.
There's a match made in hell. Don't get me wrong. Love Daphne. But that was like a night and day coupling right there.
And then I remember reading up on it later on. They had a thing where the very first ever Nitro, one of the very first ever times on Nitro, Hogan and Ric Flair teamed up to face Sting and Luger when Sting turned heel with Luger. And so that was an interesting turn of events. And then we had the Millionaires Club. Flair's feud with Vince Russo, and then Vince Russo being inside the house. Actually, on one of those episodes of Nitro, the first time we see Charlotte Flair.
Was it the Millionaires Club or was it something else? I know that
it was the Millionaires Club, yeah.
Okay, I know that the other part was like the New Blood or something like that. Was Russo's guys.
There was one point where David Flair invites Vince Russo to Flair's house. Vince Russo's got on Flair's robe running around. And there's actually a Nitro episode where Charlotte Flair as a teenage girl was on that Nitro. And I was like, well, who the hell ever thought you'd ever see Charlotte Flair already on there before she became what she is?
No shit. She was on. They showed her a teenage version of Charlotte, Ashley, whatever you want to call her, at WrestleMania when it was, or SummerSlam, whatever it was, when it was Flair versus Vince in that no holds barred or whatever match.
Oh yeah, I think that was Royal Rumble 2002.
It might have been a Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I know that both Vince and Flair, got a lot of color, and they had gimmicked up like a big time, like old school camera so that it looked gaudy as hell.
Right.
Because in this day and age, the only people using the cameras like that still are the photography people for WWE or AEW.
That's true. I definitely want to take a little step back, Kev, because you were talking about all the madness that took place with Flair and the Flair family about, Flair teaming up with Hogan and then Sting turning heel. And I'm just like, Sting what? That's never been a thing. Sting has never really been heel. I don't care what anyone says. And then just hearing, Millionaires Club, and then this happened. Like, geez, I forgot that WCW back in like late '99 into early 2000 and 2001 was just a huge clusterfuck of just absolute insanity and stupidity.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, 2000 also did bring us one of the greatest world champions of all time,
David Arquette.
Yeah. I will also say this, that I think that there's some people that made me appreciate David Arquette more as a world champion than some of the people that have been put in WWE. I think I appreciate David Arquette more as world champion than Jinder Mahal, at least. So.
Jinder was a PR stud.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He looked a hell of a lot better when he came back versus when he was in his 3MB days. But if they weren't going to be doing that huge, giant tour of India and all of that, Jinder would have never had the belt. Because what's he done since then?
You know what, Nate? I was about to. You know what, Nate? You know what, Nate? When you said that about Jinder Mahal and David Arquette, I was about to pull a Booker T on you. Like, tell me you didn't just say that. No,
I speak the truth when it comes to David Arquette. I actually watched his biography about getting back into wrestling. It's definitely a good watch. Another thing I can definitely recommend. But yeah, just Ric Flair. Didn't he have like one world title run in 2000?
Yes.
Like it, and then it was just ended by Kevin Nash or something like that. I don't know. It was a clusterfuck of a year, but I do remember that much.
But when the whole invasion thing happened and then ended, and we didn't get the people that we wanted, and you were talking about this with me, Nate. It was Vince McMahon and Kurt Angle in the ring on a Raw in 2001.
I was just watching this, yeah.
And they were in Charlotte, North Carolina, and all of a sudden you find out that you find out Stephanie and Shane's shares got bought by somebody.
Oh my God.
Woo! That was actually one of the better. I hated the idea of the brand split, but that was one of the better storylines of the Ruthless Aggression era. I think.
I agree with that. I think that this seed being planted here, where Flair is just literally like, I own half of WWE, literally a year. I love that too. Over Vince just had a big smile on his face, but he's tugging on his ear like, what the fuck's going on? And that, yeah, oh my gosh, that was great. Just
ironically enough, which is what eventually started, I think, to lead to that. No, that wasn't the part of the build up for the match.
Oh, the match between them at
the Rumble.
It was actually that was kind of like the starting point, and then finally Vince is just like, I can't stand that. I'm gonna beat the crap out of you at Royal Rumble, and I'm gonna do it in a street fight. I'm gonna do it in front of your family. I am a crazy bastard. I like people kissing my ass. Vince, you don't have to add that. I don't care. Where's Briscoe and Patterson? Get their lips on my ass. Sorry, I went into a Vince deal there. But yeah, honestly, this was kind of crazy because we go from Vince to Undertaker. What a drastic change of opponents in a matter of like 2 months.
But what's good about that though is that match he had with Undertaker. He claimed that Undertaker helped get his confidence back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And what was a really cool part about that match was that Arn Anderson spine buster.
One of the best spine busters of the night.
One of the best spine busters in the business.
Yes, that I'll agree with. I saw him do it at All Out to Sean Spears, and it was still awesome.
I mean, you know, when you have a Ric Flair match, you know you're going to have color. Flair likes to get busted open. That's just as much as you can do with it. But then when they had the brand split, I remember they were trying to both battle for Stone Cold, and Stone Cold ended up stunning both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh!
Which led to a feud between Austin and Ric Flair. And I remember Flair trying to challenge Hogan for the undisputed title on a Raw in 2002, where Hogan came out with his red and yellow motorcycle.
What?
Yep. But I think the best thing for Flair in 2002 was when he became Triple H's manager and they formed Evolution.
Mm-hmm. It definitely gave Ric Flair that chance to, just start getting better in the ring, get more active in the ring, and start grooming the next generation once again.
And that's exactly what they did. Not just Flair, but Hunter did too.
Well, I mean, we do have to remember.
I don't think without Flair and Triple H, I don't think Batista or Randy get where they are or where they were.
Yeah, no, there's no doubting that.
Randy Orton always has said in interviews that he would never be who he was if it wasn't for Flair giving him advice, and Hunter too, but mainly he was just talking about Ric Flair. Now, interestingly enough, on Flair's podcast, they asked, would Cena break that streak? And he said no, he thinks Randy Orton would break it first.
Yep.
Before
Cena, because Cena's pretty much done, and Orton still is full-time wrestling.
Although it's kind of bad right now that Orton's got that back surgery he's got to do. But
one sympathizes.
He bumps like crazy. I do want to kind of talk about this because it is going to jump ahead just a couple of years. But I remember my first major feud that I saw with Flair being him and Orton for Taboo Tuesday. And I really enjoyed the build that they had for that matchup because of how Orton basically just said, how much he idolized Ric Flair. And then he just talks about how it's sad to see how Ric Flair became, just the lackey of Triple H. That classic line of like, it's really a shame that this generation's going to remember Ric Flair for kissing Triple H's ass. And of course, that lights a fire under Flair to him basically saying like, I invented being the man. I have kissed so many women on the lips that you couldn't even count. Even this is in UK, which made this even better. Flair's just like, if you beat me, I'll let you ride in my limousine. I'll give you a couple of women. Just being like a generous, smug, arrogant bastard. But at the end of that match with the two of them at Taboo Tuesday, there's that respect between the two of them that was really cool. And it's another great story that was told. Where literally Flair made a great star in Randy Orton, which he already did, but now he just solidified it. And Randy Orton can go on to do bigger and better things, which was check notes, have a losing streak for a few years. Lost to Taker, we're not going into that. But yeah, no, I loved the story that Ric Flair and Randy Orton had. Another one that was good was also Flair and Shawn, which, Kev, you kind of mentioned a little bit about it, was the I don't remember the whole, Sting and Flair teaming up, where Sting got assaulted by Flair in the Horseman deal. But I do remember Flair and Shawn teaming up against Hunter, and then Flair goes in and starts beating down on Shawn, which sets up the feud for them, which I thought, hey, callback. That's kind of nice. They don't do that much in wrestling.
Ironically enough, after Triple H came back, I think from the second quad injury, they redid that same angle with Hunter and Flair. Triple H came back and he started beating down Flair, and I think he ends up hitting him with a sledgehammer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Raw Homecoming. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yep,
no,
Hunter,
yeah, I remember that one.
Hunter had just come back recently, and instead of billing him as a babyface, they made him heel.
Which honestly was smart because then they had a couple pretty good matches with Flair at Taboo Tuesday and Survivor Series.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we go back to the summer of 2006, the real life feud between Mick Foley and Ric Flair.
Yes! Oh my God, I'm excited to talk about this.
It was a work to a shoot to a work to a shoot to a shoot work. Or a work to shoot, sorry.
Oh my God. It's kind of one of those things where the seeds were already planting early on because ever since I think Mick Foley had his book come out, Ric Flair always criticized it, always called him a glorified stuntman, and just literally tried to bury Foley every single time. And I was just talking to Kev before the show even started, was that one video on YouTube is just called The Promo between Ric Flair and Mick Foley, and it's great. It's one of those things where you just see classic Flair, of course, doing his deal where he's just yelling, he's screaming, he's done his little face flops where where he one of the things that he also does is he mentions a lot of the legends like Brody Lee, Harley Race, Vern Guy, people like that. And
Brody Lee. You mean Bruiser Brody?
Bruiser Brody, thank you.
I say, holy Christ, Brody Lee, that man would have been over 100 now then apparently.
Yeah.
But he talks about Bruiser Brody, every single legend that he's worked with, or some of the legends that he considers to be legends, just absolutely basically saying that they're great, no legend. I'm a legend, damn it. And just him literally, again, trying to bury Mick Foley every chance he can. Even uttering the phrase like, I want to get hardcore. I want to roll in thumbtacks. I want to fly off the cage. I want to do this. Bring everything you got. You bring Sacco, I'll shove him straight up your ass.
Woo!
I remember that. On that note, though, PK's got to sign off. We got more issues here at Valor Valley. So we got family issues, health.
All right,
I'll holler at y'all later.
All right, take care,
and,
man.
I can't wait to actually watch this when it goes full over.
All right, well, you take care of yourself, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah. Man, that stuff with him and Foley, I remember that. Tell him to say, I'll take Mr. Sacco and I'll shove it up your ass.
And then we get the match at SummerSlam, where literally some people are like, okay, we're stopping the match. We're stopping that. Flair's like, no, you can't say I quit. He's got to say I quit. I think they restart the match like 3-4 times before Mick Foley finally says I quit.
Hey, Flair proved that he can go hardcore if he needs to.
Well, yeah. I mean, he also wrestled the Big Show, which is about as hardcore as you can get.
Oh. But, Flair, getting into that Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 24, I remember Flair took a hiatus, comes back and says that I'll never retire. And then Vince says, well, if you lose, the next time you lose a match, you're gone.
Simple as that.
And Flair was winning. And I remember what made that match memorable was Shawn saying, I love you, before kicking him in the face.
Well, even I just want to rewind a little bit. That final promo between the two of them before they had their clash where, Ric Flair's and Shawn are basically showing respect to each other. But then Shawn has the key phrase of like, I'm going to be taking you out the back like Old Yeller. And that's where Ric Flair is just like, Old Yeller, how dare you call me that? He just slapping Shawn in the face. He's like showing the fire he has. He's literally like, I'm not going anywhere that easily. And Shawn's just like, I know. And that's what's going to make this even tougher. And then, fast forward to, like you said, the point where he's just like, I'm sorry. I love you. Super kick. 1, 2, 3. Just, God, the emotion still hit me hard. That was so well. Another match that was so well built. Great characters. Totally understandable deal. And the outcome was just built perfectly.
Now, there is a meme. I have to find it for you, and I'll send it to you later. But there's a meme I found online where it says, Ric Flair gets retired by Shawn Michaels, and it says 2 years later, Undertaker's like, hold my beer.
Oh my god! Oh, that's right. 26. Oh my gosh!
That Raw after that WrestleMania was so emotional with Flair's family, and we finally see Reed there. We see all of his friends there, and the fact that the Undertaker comes out and kneels to him, and then Vince comes out, gives him a big old hug and stuff like that. That tells you how much Flair means. I mean, every wrestler's talked about it. Stone Cold has talked about how Flair is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Triple H said that was his favorite wrestler. Shawn said that was his favorite wrestler. Flair has a lot of, influences in wrestling today. And you said it earlier with The Miz. There's a lot of influences. I remember one time that they were talking about The Miz wanted Flair to be his manager, but they didn't do that all the way. But when we thought Flair was retired, Flair decided to go on the Australian Hulkamania tour. And him and Hogan had a couple of matches there that shouldn't have happened. But
I wonder how those house shows went.
Well, they're on video. You can clearly see. I mean, Hogan can't do the leg drop anymore. Flair and Hogan both busted open. It was just a mess.
So it was kind of the same thing as before. Flair basically carried the match, and Hogan just looks like Hogan.
Yeah. Well, actually, Flair was a little bit out of shape during this one because you can tell he's like, I'm doing it for a paycheck. Who gives a shit?
That sounds like Flair.
I remember Ric Flair, January the 4th, 2010, the day that TNA went live against Monday Night Raw, and Flair shows up in that limo at the end of observing AJ Styles and Kurt Angle's match. When you heard Ric Flair was going to TNA, what did you think?
I was kind of in shock by that because I think that for the longest time there were still a lot of people that I saw that were just going to be solely WWE guys. And I think that it was also a situation where, Ric Flair's retired. I figured he was probably just going to enjoy your retirement life and just ride off into the sunset. But then when I see him on TNA TV, I'm like, whoa, okay, this will be interesting. Obviously know that I think this is my first kind of like exposure to the idea that when somebody says that they're going to retire, that it's not fully true unless they actually stay retired. I honestly thought the same thing as Shawn Michaels. I'm like, man, he's been staying retired for so long. I think that he's going to be the first guy to actually, Crown Jewel's coming up. Fuck. Never mind.
And I remember that when he came on there on January 17th, the Genesis, Flair helped Styles cheat to pin Kurt Angle. But then that's when Ric Flair formed that stable with not only Desmond Wolfe and AJ Styles, but Beer Money.
Fortune 4.
And we go into that big feud between, if anybody remembers this, Abyss and Hogan versus AJ Styles and Ric Flair.
Oh, God.
Let's see, they had their TNA lockdown. It was Team Flair versus Team Hogan. They won.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember on April the 26th episode of Impact, Flair was defeated by Abyss in a match where Flair and Hogan's WWE Hall of Fame rings were at stake. As a result, Flair lost the possession of his ring, to which the following week Hogan gave to Jay Lethal, and Jay Lethal who returned it to Ric Flair out of respect. This, however, was not enough for Flair, who attacked Lethal. So that leads to the Jay Lethal Ric Flair promo.
Yes, this.
Since you're a big TNA guy, Nate, you lead the way on it.
This was basically the launching point of the conversation. Literally, Kev sends me the video of Jay Lethal and Ric Flair. Literally, Jay Lethal comes out while Fortune's doing a promo in the ring, and Jay Lethal is doing his best Ric Flair impression. He's doing the gimmick. He's taking off his suit jacket. He's taking off his shoes. Ric Flair is just literally convulsing in the ring, stripping down, yelling out to Lethal. It's like, come on, tough guy. Let's see what you got. And the favorite line that we have and we agree on is Ric Flair just yelling at him, saying, limousine ride, kiss stealing, wheeler dealing, son of a gun, who can kiss anyone in this arena right now, even that fat one, and make her cry. It's just literally just going.
And then that's when Jay Lethal told, hey, you know what? It's been Space Mountain's been locked down. He's like, nah. He's like, longest ride.
Oh, oldest ride, longest ride.
But what's interesting about that promo is that I heard Jay Lethal say that he was so nervous. So he went up to Flair beforehand and goes, do you want to talk about it? He said, nah, kid, let's just leave it in the ring. And then he's like, whatever you do, I'll follow. And he thought when he came backstage that Flair was going to kill him. But Flair gave him a hug and told him that was great. Woo!
Oh,
the fact that Jay Lethal took off his jacket and then did an elbow drop on the damn stage was this. You gotta like Black Machismo. There's no way around that. But between those two, yeah, it was perfect.
It's just amazing to see again how Ric Flair, even at that point where he is well past his prime, is finding ways to elevate young talent. And he did it again by giving Lethal a win over him, which, my God, the fact that he got that is saying something. I think he even lost to Lethal via the figure four, if I'm not mistaken. I remember he did that with someone, but I think he might have done it with Lethal. And again, it should be one of those things where it's like, elevate Lethal. He defeated a legend. Holy shit. This is amazing.
I remember on an episode of Impact, I know Flair was defeated by Mick Foley in the Last Man Standing. So yeah, their feud kind of went a little further into TNA.
Yeah, not as good as the one in WWE, but still one of those things where it's like, hey, he could still go hardcore. Is that really a surprise? No.
That's what I loved about Flair in TNA, is like he was there to elevate. He wasn't there to like try to steal the spotlight from the other guys. Like he elevated AJ, he elevated Beer Money. Oh, by the way, I forgot totally off subject here, Nate, but you might like this. But one of the matches on the card for Flair's last match was the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Wolves.
I did see that, and I was like, damn it. That'd be one of those matches I would love to see, because those are two of the greatest tag teams in TNA, bar none. Oh my gosh, I did forget about that. That's awesome. If I could find a highlight to do it, I want to at least see that highlight for that match, because
if I could find it, if I find it before you, I'll send it to you.
Sweet. But I think we're closing up on possibly Ric Flair's TNA run, because didn't he have like one more big time match?
Well, it did say the Fortune did form that alliance with Hogan and Bischoff's Immortal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I remember going to the TNA lockdown in 2012. We're at the Municipal Auditorium, Mel sitting with me. Flair calls out Hogan. And it was the only second time ever, Nate, that I saw both legends at the same time. I saw one in Nitro. I mean, one of the WCW shows. But this was the second time I got to see those two face to face. And it was just like the eruption of seeing both of them together was just insane. And then, of course, Hogan turns face and, turns on Immortal, and Sting's like, help me, Hogan, help me.
And Hogan's, of course, just be like, should I do it? Should I do it? What do you guys think? Just literally looking at the fans like, what am I supposed to do? Do something? It's kind of like that episode of Family Guy where Peter just looks over. He's like, "Am I supposed to conduct with my penis?" just literally, Hogan's just like, "Am I supposed to beat these people up with my penis?"
So in April of 2012, this is where it leads to Flair's departure. Flair tried to leave his TNA contract, and which led to TNA filing a lawsuit against WWE for contract tampering, and eventually firing Ric Flair on May the 11th.
Oh.
So that's what led to Flair being back on WWE for until he left in 2000, left last year. But one of my fondest memories of Flair coming back, and I remember they had a thing for the Royal Rumble in 2015. They had Shawn in the ring, Flair, and Hogan, and they were picking their favorites to win the Rumble. Big Show comes out, and he looks at Hogan. And he goes, "I remember whooping your ass in WCW." And he looks at Flair, and he's like, "I remember whooping your ass." And he looks at Shawn. He was like, "As you ran for me when I came." And then Hogan looked like he dropped the mic, like Hogan's about to do something. And Flair's like, "No. I got this." Flair starts punching, chopping. He's like, "I didn't want to have to do that. You made me." But we all know that Ric Flair did some stuff with Charlotte. I remember that WrestleMania 32, he got involved in that triple threat with Becky and her and Sasha. And I like the fact that they used a little bit of Charlotte, using her father. And then all of a sudden, the only thing that was weird though was when they tried to use Rick with Lacey with Lacey Evans. That was like, what are we doing here?
It feels like we're back in WCW 2000 all over again.
But the concept of why Ashley, aka Charlotte, wrestled still it breaks my heart, but it's a really good story. Is that was Reed's dream. Reed Flair was supposed to be going to WWE before he had that untimely death, and that was his dream. And Charlotte decided, you know what, I'm going to follow Reed's dream. And I feel like Reed would have been a really good one.
I think having another Flair in the WWE would have been interesting. I think that having like a son and daughter duo, literally carrying the torch that their father leaves behind would have been something very special. I mean, right now Ric Flair is a 21-time world champion, and Charlotte is just getting close to that point. She's already at her 15th reign as women's champion. So she just needs one more to get to the WWE and John Cena reign. And then she'll just need one more to break that, which, honestly, I'd be okay with her breaking it. I think that they definitely do need to tell a really good story about that, though. They can't just give it to the people right away. But
there was also a good one, too. And it was an NXT 2014 for the Women's Championship. Charlotte versus Natty on one side, Bret Hart, and the other side was Ric Flair. And that was just perfect.
That matchup was better than the match that they had at I think it was Payback, where Flair did the sharpshooter to Natalya, and then they just recreated the Montreal Screwjob right in front of Bret, just for reasons. It's one of those things where looking back at that match compared to the NXT one, NXT had a lot more respect for Bret Hart, even though Natty came so close to becoming women's champion. They at least made her look like she was going to be a credible threat, and they made Flair look like a really good person to be the next women's champion.
Now, what's interesting, though, about Flair was that one of the reasons why him and WWE were having that problem was because he did not like Becky Lynch being called the man.
I can't imagine why he would have an issue with it.
But, Ric Flair having a peacemaker. I actually during the time that he was in the hospital for a while, I was seriously. I don't know about the rest of you. I don't know about Nate, but I actually thought he wasn't going to make it. I was seriously like, man, this would suck if we lose Rick now. And apparently, that's what bonded him and Hogan's friendship. Hogan was there at the hospital a lot and was talking to him, and they became really good friends. Like, he's like, the world without Ric Flair is crazy. Now, there's a story that happened where they were at a this happened around 2018 or no 2019. Hogan and Flair were coming back from a SmackDown, and some fan was heckling both of them at the bar. Hogan confronted him. Flair basically got up and was about ready to come up behind the guy and chop him in the face. It was like Hogan's over here in the crutch going like, "Won't you come over here?" And all of a sudden, Flair's like, but we all know about the condition Flair's got. So when he decided that he wanted to do one last match, what did you think when you heard about it? He was training with Jay Lethal to do this match.
It was one of those things where I honestly think that had he just ended his career at WrestleMania 24 and then just stayed like in the managerial role throughout the entirety of his career, the rest of his post retirement career, that'd have been fine. So in that respect, I do understand why he wanted to do that, because I think it was one of those things where he wanted to end it on his terms, but also have a really good match that he could be proud of saying, like, this was my last matchup. Because I know that, TNA I've talked very highly of, but I don't think that the matches that he had in TNA were all that special like they were in WWE or in WCW. Mm-hmm. So I think that when he announced it, it was kind of one of those things where obviously I was like a lot of people that were like, oh boy, this is where we're going to see Ric Flair die. And thankfully that is not the case of what we saw. But the fact that he was able to do bumps with Jay Lethal showed that he wanted to be safe about this and that he also wanted to make sure that his body could take it. So I definitely do respect him in that sense. I think that he definitely wanted to be that, wanted to be the Nature Boy. He wanted to be Ric Flair one more time, which I get. And I'll admire that. I'll respect that. I just think that maybe he should have ended his career a long time ago. But ultimately, yeah, it may have been a disaster of a match, but thankfully he's not dead. Thankfully he's not severely injured. He went out there and he proved again why he was the Nature Boy, why he was Ric Flair. So
now, what was great about this matchup was the lead up to it. Like, when they had the press conference here in Nashville, the assistant mayor here was calling this Flair Day, or calling it the Flair. It was supposed to be the fairgrounds. They called it the Flair Grounds, and they were. And I remember him rubbing it in Jeff Jarrett's face, saying, "Hey, I got a ticket for you and your old man, since you don't, saying that stuff like that." And you could tell Rick was being cocky. He was being Ric Flair, and I remember Jay Lethal was like, "Hey, man, can I be a part of the card?" And he's like, well, I don't see you as a main eventer. I see you as a curtain jerker. And that's what started this whole thing where they were beating up Ric Flair. And then Jeff Jarrett tries to help. And then I think Flair said something to him. And then they started beating up on Flair. And then they went on the My World podcast with Jeff Jarrett. And I remember Conrad Thompson, who was Flair's other son-in-law, was like, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Rick does this to everybody. Rick steals stuff. Rick does this." And it was a really good thing because Rick used his podcast. They're using their podcasts as platforms to build their feud before the match. And I thought that was a really nice way of doing it. But what was cool, though, was when they went up to the ramp afterwards, Jay Lethal came out and gave a big hug to Rick. He broke character.
Sometimes you just gotta break the kayfabe, brother.
And then we had Undertaker, who was there with Michelle McCool, and yeah, we had Diamond Dallas Page kind of lurking in the background behind him. But that's cool though. You had Bret Hart sitting in the same exact row as Foley and Undertaker, watching this matchup. Now, Flair's other daughter got involved in the match. He took out Karen Jarrett. I think it was Conrad's wife. I can't think of her name at the moment, but it wasn't Charlotte, but it was the other one. But then again, if you watch the match, though, Andrade takes most of the punishment. You know, he takes most of the beating. But it is Ric Flair, and you knew Ric Flair was going to do some dirty tricks, and he did.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't have expected anything much less from that because Ric Flair, he is as old as time at this point. So he definitely was not going to do a lot of the crazy stuff that he did before. But I imagine he definitely tried to do at least some of the familiar like spots that he normally did. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did. Besides faking a heart attack and poking Jay Lethal in the eye or low blowing him was kind of odd. And the referee for that match, his last ever refereeing match, was Mike Chioda.
Wow.
So they had Mike Chioda for that match. And they had a really good card. They had the Briscoe brothers versus the Von Erichs. And, you know, the Wolves versus Motor City Machine Gun. When I saw that and I saw they were on the card, I automatically thought of you. I was like, oh, shit. Nate's probably going to be like, fuck.
One other matchup that I probably would have been looking forward to would be the, I guess, the new branded Four Horsemen of Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson versus the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes. And Arn Anderson came out as their manager.
Oh, that's just so good. That's another thing that just pulls on the heartstrings. Jeez.
Well, let me ask you this. This is just hypothetically because we got Nate the Effing Great, the guy, but if it was Nate the Effing Great in the ring and Flair joined MCW, what would happen to Ric Flair?
Honestly, I would have him be definitely like a general manager of sorts. If I were to also say that he could manage somebody, I definitely would love to just take the opportunity to have him, you know, take me under his wing, learn how to do proper promos, learn how to really have that same intensity that he had. Because in the shorter time of being a fan of Ric Flair compared to, you know, a lot of people have probably studied his career throughout all the years. I mean, some people have probably been his fan for all the 50 years that he's been there. I definitely really enjoy the fact that even if he doesn't have the best match on the card, he's always passionate about what he does. No matter what he did, he was always going to be just there to give everybody a memorable show, and he was going to give everybody his all. So that's the one thing I definitely can give full credit to Ric Flair is that he never half-assed anything. He was always there, busting his ass, giving everybody a memorable performance.
And plus, though, you're talking to a guy that has a rap song and he was in the rap video made about Ric Flair. I mean, that's just. But if he was in MCW, I could see Flair trying to ask Kayla and Courtney and them to be a part of Space Mountain. I could definitely see that happening. And if he was your manager and me and you were feuding, I would tell him it would be an honor if he ended up like raking me in the eye or hitting me with a low blow or something. And I mean, they're trying to chop me because I would love to be like
do the Hogan Sting deal. Just
you just chop me.
just have him just be like, no,
like, no. I don't think I would be able to hit him though, you know, because if I saw Rick, I'd be like, I can't. It's Ric Flair. I can't do it.
Or it'd be one of those things where you would try to hit him, and I would just be able to grab your arm,
yeah,
stop you from it. But then I would just eat the punch instead.
But hey, you're not getting a Rick, but you're getting a Tim.
That's true. That is very true.
But I mean, if you think about it with Ric Flair, though, and you guys can share your memories in the comments later. But I think one of my fondest memories of Rick is still to this day his promos back from when he was in the Horsemen to now, talking about how he wears $600 clothing and how he would get crazy and his eyes would bug out, going, "Why you not? What?" And he would just start having a mental breakdown. That, to me, with Ric Flair is Ric Flair. He knew how to be that suave, cool Ric Flair in his promos. He knew when to switch it to. It's like being Rick, but then turn that volume up, and he's like, "What? What'd you say?"
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. One favorite memory of mine when it comes to Ric Flair, I think would have to be the night that he won the Intercontinental title from Carlito. And there's a backstage segment where he has all these women. They all just pile into the limousine. And then later on, we just see the door open up. Every woman is just like, hair is a little bit crazy, dresses all meshy. Then Ric Flair, he just comes out. He's literally just like dizzy and crazy. And then he just does a front bump. And I'm just like, that's classic Flair. That's awesome. I loved, again, like I said, he gives it his all and he makes sure that they leave you with a memorable impression of him. And that's the one thing I am grateful for when it comes to Ric Flair, is that he always left a great impression when it came to his in-ring work. He always laid it all on the line, like I said, and he always made it just vastly entertaining. More entertaining than it had any right to be. I mean, if somebody were to tell me that he was going to have an entertaining feud with Mick Foley, I would have said, "You're crazy. There's no way that would happen." And then I'd watch it and be like, Ric Flair is one of the greatest entertainers ever, just bar none.
You have Ric Flair, man, with the Intercontinental title. Could you imagine a feud between him and the Godfather? They never did it, but damn it, they should have. God.
Oh, jeez.
He would have brought the whole train for everybody. Like, whole train. Woo! All their mamas was on my train.
All them hoes are going to get a free pass through Space Mountain. Woo!
Now, Flair has allegedly said that he has slept with 10,000 women. I don't know if it's true, but knowing Rick, I know he's probably slept around. All those divorces he's got, I know he's probably slept around.
Yes.
But now the question remains, though, is do you think Flair might have messed with some of those women wrestlers back there?
I could see a situation where maybe he tried and ultimately failed, or it's just a situation where he definitely was very respectful to the women backstage. I haven't really heard that many people, say bad things about working with Ric Flair. Like obviously he's not doing like the plane ride from hell where he's going out naked and doing a helicopter out in like the locker room or something like that. Obviously, he's definitely adapted a bit more. So I would say he's probably more crashed and burned in later years, but like early days and when he was when he was the Nature Boy, probably like Jim Crockett promotion, WCW, I could definitely see that probably being a thing.
You know what's cool is that the first Nitro had a Sting and Ric Flair match, and the last one had a Sting and Flair match.
Absolutely wonderful. That is awesome.
That right there tells you, even though Ric Flair wrestled in a t-shirt in the match, but it was good enough to be like. What I thought was cool was the Joker Sting interacting with Hogan and Flair's characters. That was pretty funny.
Oh my gosh,
that was pretty good.
that is a podcast in and of itself, is Sting.
Which I was going to announce it on here, but Sting is the next guy on the list that I was going to go at it, because I know there's a lot of Sting fans that I know, and they're all like, "Dude, we need to do the Sting one. I'm like, so yes, Sting will be the next one, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
and You know what's great about going to a wrestling show, even if it's not even a WWE show, even if Ric Flair is not on the card, when you sit there, you get into the arena, they let you in, you buy your gear, you buy your food, and you sit there. There's always a woo chant. It never fails. I've even heard. I don't know if it happens at Wisconsin, but I've heard woo chants in an indie show.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you hear a chop, it always goes to the Ric Flair. Woo!
Now, the one thing is, there's another group that claim that they stay in character because Ric Flair stays in character. Ric Flair is Ric Flair day and night, but Ric Flair is also a humble human being. Seeing an interview with him here in Nashville last week, humble guy. Does he got demons? Sure, we all got mistakes, and that whole plane ride from hell. It paints them. I don't like Vice for painting them in a bad picture. And poor Tommy Dreamer got really raw deal on that one too.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. It cost him quite a bit. Yeah, no, I imagine that Ric Flair definitely is a fun-loving guy. He, like a lot of people, has definitely battled with a lot of things in his life. I mean, whether it's his health, whether it's alcohol, or honestly, I think it kind of does hit me as like Ric Flair probably has battled with depression, because the fact that, you know, he was so high up, and now seeing him kind of, you know, his popularity kind of dwindle a bit, even though some people would disagree. Maybe his popularity is just as good now as it was then. It is kind of one of those things that it probably takes a toll on the guy, but hopefully he's able to, you know, rest easy at night, knowing that he did his last match and that he gave something for this generation of fans to remember him by. Hopefully.
The cool thing about this StarCast thing was, they had the roast of Ric Flair that's on YouTube. There's comedians over there saying that, you know, the only thing blacker than Ric Flair is his liver, and then he was sitting there saying that he's like the only worst, you know, Ric Flair. He's like, I hope you do better than your buddy Hulk Hogan in his sex tape. I mean, you know, he was like hoking up and then. But the great thing about that though was they had a video package of The Rock thanking Ric Flair and talked about how Flair was great to his family, that he wasn't getting paid in Hawaii and he was still cool to his grandmother. That Rock's grandmother used to help make some of Ric Flair's robes. Used to help with them. And the fact that The Rock, of all people, sent a message out to Ric Flair like that was. Now, the whole StarCast thing, I was upset because I thought Hogan would be there because they've been friends for a while, but then I realized Bret and Steiner are there. So I was kind of like, yeah, I don't think Hogan's going to show up now.
That's fair.
But I thought he would, only because I was sitting there thinking, well, you know, it'll be kind of interesting. But I think Rick said the reason why Hulk may have not have been a part of the festivities as much, because Hulk's a little mad because he can't have that last match. Either. Because all those 10 back surgery he's got, he's like, well, shit, I can't have that one. He's like, it's that one last outlaw rodeo that you want. You want that last one. You're like, man, if I can't have it, it's like it's taken away from you. But what was cool about the convention, I heard, is we could have had a Nate the Effing Great and a Big Kev bobblehead on Ric Flair's body with our faces 3D'd on it.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
In the robe too.
Oh my gosh, that's
so. Yeah, I mean, it's great to have a Ric Flair moment. I'm glad most of y'all came on here and talked about the Ric Flair moments. We all know the PK Valor. You know, I know he came on for a little bit. I know he kind of tore his bicep, so he had to. Damn it, Kayla, you're working him too hard. But no, I mean, hopefully his thing is good. Nate Deffin Great's been here. I know you're still working on your TNA thing. What are you on right now as far as your TNA thing?
So I just released an episode today for Brace for Impact. It is episode 9 for Hard Justice, which is a pretty good show. Still in the 2005 era right now, but hopefully before, I want to say next month, we'll get to 2006, but we'll see. But next episode, episode 10, is the debut of Samoa Joe. So that just got me super excited for listening into these. But it's called
I'm a big Joe fan too. So
Samoa Joe's amazing. But for those that are interested, you can check out Brace for Impact on Wrestle Addict Radio, also on so many different podcasting deals, such as iTunes, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. Literally just look for Wrestle Addict Radio. You'll find that on there. Also Spotify. I feel like that's a given, but still I'll say it. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to talking more about that, and I'm really happy to be a part of this, to talk about Ric Flair, especially after this past weekend.
It was one of the things that, I mean, I will be honest with you, Flair wasn't my first choice, but then I started thinking about the weekend, and then me and you had that conversation, and I was like, who else better to start with than Flair?
Right.
So yeah, we're gonna start with Flair, and then we're gonna start with probably in a week or two we'll start with Sting, and there's a lot of good memories, and I know that Nate knows a lot of stuff about Sting and TNA, so this will definitely help that out quite tremendously. We might try to skip over his WWE run. I mean, might just kind
of. What do you know about WWE? I'll put your guys' minds at ease right here. What can you say about his WWE run? He got inducted to the Hall of Fame, never won a match.
Well, he won a tag match on Raw.
I don't count that.
I don't count that either. Yeah. I mean, that's a sad thing in itself. But anything else you want to add about Flair, Nate? Or you pretty much?
Honestly, I will say this to anybody that is looking for somebody who is a great character, does not have to do all the craziest moves. If you have a character that some people can either root for or root against, you definitely have something special on your mind. Definitely watch the character work of Ric Flair. He's always passionate about his promos. I cannot recommend enough of his promos deals. We talked about some of his matches. They're really simple, and they're really just fun to enjoy because of the fact that they tell a story in the ring. That's something that I think a lot more people are really appreciating now, is that story in the ring is what creates the memories. Not the high spots, not the crazy flippy-dippy stuff like that. It's just tell a story in the ring and create something memorable that people can look back on and be like, yeah, that was a great feud because of this matchup. Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, they had a great feud that ended up with a cage. That was awesome. Flair and Steamboat had a great rivalry. Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair had a great rivalry because of great, matches like that. And they're simple. They're not anything too complicated, nothing too crazy. They just created chemistry in the ring and created a story. That is the most important thing I can see it. Ric Flair is an amazing storyteller, bar none.
Ric Flair is an amazing storyteller. This is what I'm going to add to it. Piggyback off what Nate said. If anybody does ever want to be a wrestler and you're watching AEW and you're like, well, I can't do those flips and those Canadian destroyers, watch a Ric Flair match. Ric Flair definitely tells you how to do everything safely. Not a lot of injuries Flair has had except for that plane crash and maybe a concussion or two. Probably a jam finger. That's probably as much as you can say about Ric Flair. But the fact that he is 73 years old and got back into the ring doing something that he loved and knowing that he could die doing something that he loved and trying to go out his own way, you got to respect that, even though it might be crazy to some people. It basically motivates me now because I'm thinking, well, I'm 40. I turned 41 on February 11th. So I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm going to be able to get back in the ring. And I was sitting there thinking, if Flair can do it at 73, anybody can do that. I mean, that just shows you right there the heart and dedication Ric Flair's got. I don't like to talk about his demons or his mistakes because everybody's a human. They make mistakes. I can't point one finger and say, hey, Flair's this, Flair's that. Ric Flair is Even Hulk Hogan has said it. Shawn has said it. Taker has said it. Austin said it. Most people call him the greatest professional wrestler of all time. But he is probably one of the greatest showmen of all time. And it's going to pain me to say this because everybody knows I like Hogan too. He's even a better showman than Hulk Hogan.
I'll agree with that.
There's nothing you can do that can say that Flair had his spots that made him who he is. He didn't. He might have had some bad matches, sure, but we're all going to have good matches. We're all going to have bad matches, but it's that chemistry you can have with somebody. I just would like to thank Ric Flair for all of his memories. I mean, hopefully this is the last time he stays retired, damn it. I don't want to hear about it 80 years old. He comes out of retirement and goes, woo, I'm going to hit you with my wheelchair. Wow.
Well, like I said, he's probably going to main event WrestleMania with Dominic Mysterio, and he's just going to be a head in a jar like Futurama. So that's probably what we're going to see from Ric Flair, if anything. But no, I definitely do want to agree with that. Thank you, Ric Flair, for all the memories that you've created, for the legacy that you left. You've definitely created a lot of stars. So we thank you for the impact that you left on professional wrestling, and nothing wishing you best of luck in your future endeavors, as well as best of luck with your health, man.
And if Flair does happen to come back to WWE because Triple H is in charge, hopefully they use him the right way.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's Nate the effing great. This is Big Kev. That was PK Valor earlier. I don't know if his arm has fell off ever afterwards or not. I mean, you could probably find his arm on eBay for about $9.99. But anyways, though, I'd like to thank Weeder Wrestling and a couple other people for making some comments. Later on, for y'all who haven't seen the video, if you want to give me some of your Ric Flair fondest memories, you can post them on the comments below. Like, share, and sub. And tune in next time because we'll be doing a Sting biography.
Woo! It's showtime!
All you Stinger fans out there, yeah, we'll do it.